In the annals of economic turmoil, few crises rival the breathtaking descent Venezuela endured just a few years ago. As the once prosperous nation spiraled into hyperinflation, its people found themselves navigating a dystopian reality where the simple act of buying groceries required lugging bags brimming with nearly worthless bolivar notes. The scourge of runaway prices, coupled with an exodus of human capital and the implosion of the vital oil industry, had rendered this South American nation an economic wasteland. Yet, against all odds, a fragile sense of normalcy has begun to take root. The latest data points to an almost implausible reality. Annual inflation in Venezuela has tumbled from a mind-boggling 130,000% in 2017 to a relatively tame 60% as of May 2023. Even more striking, independent estimates peg current inflation at a mere 27%, a far cry from the 200,000% apex reached in 2018 during the depths of the crisis. This hard-won reprieve from the scourge of hyperinflation stands as a remarkable, if unlikely, achievement for President Nicolás Maduro's embattled administration. Through a combination of draconian spending cuts, efforts to prop up the exchange rate, and a de facto dollarization of the economy, Mr. Maduro's government has managed to wrest control of spiraling prices. To grasp the magnitude of this feat, one must understand the sheer scale of the economic calamity that had befallen Venezuela. At its nadir, the nation's financial woes were rivaled only by those of war-torn nations, a stunning fall from grace for what was once one of Latin America's wealthiest societies. The roots of this crisis can be traced back to 2014, when plummeting oil prices deprived the government of its primary source of revenue. In a desperate attempt to sustain public spending, the central bank began printing money with reckless abandon, unleashing a tidal wave of inflation that would eventually render the bolivar virtually worthless. It was a catastrophe of the government's own making, driven by profligate spending and economic mismanagement on an epic scale. As the crisis deepened, U.S. sanctions further compounded the nation's woes, with the imposition of restrictive measures in 2019 serving as a tipping point that propelled Venezuela into the abyss of hyperinflation. Yet, even as the economic cataclysm reached its apex, the seeds of recovery were being sown. In a stark reversal of past policies, the Maduro administration began to loosen its stranglehold on the economy, allowing for the free circulation of U.S. dollars and easing restrictions on the private sector. Taxes on imports were removed, money printing was curtailed, and public spending was reined in. The impact of these measures, while painful, has been profound. By relinquishing its grip on the economy and effectively allowing for dollarization, the government has managed to restore a semblance of stability to prices and exchange rates. However, this hard-earned stability has come at a steep cost. As Saul Cabrera, president of the local market research firm Consultors 21, aptly notes, the problem of the common citizen is domestic finance, not the macroeconomy. While the government's policies have succeeded in taming inflation, they have done little to alleviate the financial hardships faced by ordinary Venezuelans. For the vast majority of the population, high living costs and stagnant wages remain the primary concerns. In an economy where GDP has contracted by a staggering 70%, more than double the economic hit suffered by the United States during the Great Depression, finding well-paid work has become an exercise in futility. Public sector wages, in particular, have borne the brunt of the spending cuts that enabled the government's assault on inflation. The minimum wage, supplemented by a series of bonuses, amounts to a paltry $130 per month, a mere pittance in a country where the monthly cost of living for a family of 5 is estimated to exceed $500. The resulting income disparity has cleaved Venezuelan society into two distinct strata: those who rely on government salaries or pensions, trapped in a cycle of poverty, and those fortunate enough to be employed in the slowly reviving private sector or operating as independent workers. Viviana Rodriguez, a 47-year-old housekeeper in Caracas, epitomizes the plight of the former group. Her income has dwindled precipitously over the past year as demand for her services has waned, forcing her to scale back on even the most basic necessities. People are not hiring personnel like they used to, she laments, her voice tinged with weary resignation. Rafael Monsalve, a 66-year-old retiree, finds himself similarly strapped, relying on the generosity of his siblings to supplement his meager pension. Scarcity is a thing of the past, he observes wryly. The problem now is the money. In stark contrast, Those fortunate enough to be employed in the private sector or operating as independent workers find themselves in a comparatively advantageous position. Gabriel Gonzalez, a 41-year-old salesman in Caracas, acknowledges that while the economic situation has improved marginally, making ends meet remains an uphill battle. For retirees, people earning a basic salary, public employees, it's really tough, he remarks. For an independent worker, it's still hard, but we can defend ourselves. This dichotomy has given rise to a new class divide, one that transcends traditional socioeconomic boundaries. As Yusniber Fernandez, a 23-year-old business administrator, astutely observes, there are people that depend only on minimum wages. They don't have the same possibilities we do. Amid this backdrop of disparate fortunes, the Maduro administration finds itself navigating a precarious tightrope. On the one hand, the government has remained steadfast in its commitment to fiscal discipline, resisting the temptation to embark on pre-election spending sprees that could imperil the hard-won gains against inflation. Yet, this disciplined approach has come at a steep cost, further constraining the nation's already limited resources and hampering prospects for economic recovery. As Tamara Herrera, head of the economic analysis firm Synthesis Financiera, bluntly asserts, expansive policies require measures that they, the government, don't have the courage to do, because they fear losing control of inflation. It is a catch-22 that underscores the profound challenges facing Venezuela as it seeks to emerge from the rubble of its economic collapse. While the taming of hyperinflation represents a crucial first step, the road to sustained recovery remains fraught with obstacles. Attracting foreign investment, reviving the moribund oil industry, and restoring fiscal health are all imperatives that will require deft maneuvering and a willingness to embrace further reforms. Yet, as the upcoming presidential election looms large on July 28, the Maduro administration finds itself caught between the imperatives of economic pragmatism and the political expediency of shoring up domestic support. The election, widely regarded as a litmus test for Maduro's legitimacy both at home and abroad, has only heightened the stakes. The recent reimposition of U.S. sanctions, prompted by concerns over electoral fairness, underscores the scrutiny under which the Venezuelan government finds itself operating. In this high-stakes game of economic and political brinkmanship, Nicolás Maduro has undoubtedly achieved a remarkable feat in vanquishing the specter of hyperinflation that had once held Venezuela in its vice-like grip. However, as the nation's long-suffering citizens can attest, this victory is but a fleeting reprieve in an ongoing battle to restore prosperity and stability to a nation that once stood as a beacon of economic promise. The true test of Maduro's leadership will lie in his ability to chart a course that transcends mere price stability and ushers in a new era of inclusive growth and opportunity for all Venezuelans. Only then can the scars of this nation's economic trauma begin to heal and the promise of a brighter future be realized.